It's that time again. Time for another Swan's Japanese horror reviews. And today we've got probably one of the most shocking and bizarre titles that I've ever reviewed. This 1989 black and white techno classic is brought to us by Shinya Tsukamoto. Now you might recognize that name because he was the actor who starred in Maribito from my last review. Well, this is the film that made him super famous, or at least gathered him a cult following. So without further ado, here's my review for the ever-shocking Tetsuo, the Iron Man. Tetsuo is a fairly short film. It's only about 64 minutes, so really just over an hour. But in that hour, you will see images and scenes of things that you have probably never seen in a film before, and sometimes hopefully you never will ever again. It starts off with a man who is inserting metal into his body, and it's pretty graphic from the first 5 minutes alone, and you know, if that's any indication of what's going to be going on later in the film, yeah, you might want to be careful. But eventually this guy who's putting metal in him, gets run over by this other guy in his car, and then we switched, so we're following this other man, the guy who ran the other guy over. And basically, he's not having that good of a day. This weird robot girl has been following him, which leads up into a very shocking sexual encounter that's very graphic and not for the faint of heart. You know, he ran over the other guy with his car, and on top of it all, he's kind of turning into a robot. So, yeah, not the best of days by anyone's book. So the story is incredibly odd, and it takes us through this man's journey of himself assimilating with metal, and his flesh is slowly giving way to robotic parts in all over his body, which leads to another sexual encounter later on that is intensely graphic, and none of my friends could stomach to watch the film from this one scene alone. So yeah, this film is not for children. If I was a kid and I saw this movie, I would probably cry myself to sleep for like years. I would be so shocked. Even, you know, at my age right now, some of it is like still really hard to watch. You know, and this is an older film, you know, in 1989, no, it's not like old or anything, but compared to most of the stuff I review, it's a bit more dated, but yet it's far more shocking, and it's far more powerful in its imagery than a lot of the current stuff, which is, you know, ghosts and supernatural, which is fine. I mean, that's the great thing about Japanese horror. It allows for all these things to coexist. You know, you get different kinds of movies. And this is a different kind of movie. There are scenes of self-mutilation, scenes of intense violence, but there's also, I think, a fair amount of symbolism behind the scenes here. Some people read this film, you know, obviously it came out in 1989, you know, we're starting to get more and more electronic things, you know, are starting to get more and more high-tech. So maybe it's a commentary on that. Some people read this as actually a homosexual film where the man is having a sexual crisis and he is slowly discovering his sexuality. And I can actually see some of that in this film, definitely. I think there's fair enough evidence to get that from the film. I don't know if that's what Tsukamoto intended. Whether he did or not, I mean, it's certainly, I think, a viable telling of the story. The way that Tetsuo, the Iron Man, is shot might turn off some people because there's a lot of like jumpy cameras and whatnot, and you know, fast motion, slow motion, stop animation. So it's really neat. There's a lot of like cool stuff that's happening. Sometimes it's pretty 80s, like some of it looks like 80s music videos. There's a really industrial soundtrack, which is really good. I love the soundtrack to this movie. There's not much dialogue. There's, you know, some lines here and there, but most of it's like grunting and yelling and laughing and crying. It takes, you know, a certain kind of stomach to get through one of these movies, and an open mind as well. So this is not your traditional J-horror. If you put this on the shelf next to like The Ring, these movies are so far apart, you know, it's it's even worse than apples and oranges. It's out of this world, to be honest. So this is a hard movie to recommend to people, but I think that if you sit down and give it a chance and you have a really open mind and you're okay with intense amounts of sexuality and taboo sexuality, and I think, you know, you might find something interesting in this film. The DVD comes to us from Tartan Asia Extreme, and while it's a standard, you know, release, basically, it's got production notes and some trailers for Tartan Asia Extreme releases. There's also some scenes from other Shinya Tsukamoto films, which is probably the highlight of the extra features on the DVD. If I had to give it a score, I would probably give it 8 out of 10, to be honest. I think it's a really unique film, very well made. Perhaps some parts might be a little over the top, and maybe some parts actually a little slow in places. So the pacing might be a little odd in the 60 minutes or so, but overall it's a very nice film. And I'd give the DVD 6 out of 10. Tetsuo the Iron Man. It's certainly a hard movie to sum up in, you know, the span of just a few minutes, but I hope, you know, by hearing what I have to say and by looking at some of the pictures, you know, maybe you'll give this one a try if you happen to feel the urge to give it a try. This is the kind of movie that you should watch, you know, in the dead of night, like 2 in the morning or something, have all the lights off and just be alone, because odds are no one's going to want to watch this movie with you. I've tried. So yeah, excellent film, excellent makeup and special effects, you know, very thought-provoking, very shocking. So yeah, this is definitely one for the record books, and wow, it's a weird one. So anyways, as always, I'm Swan. This has been a horror review, and we'll see you next time.